Tell us about the full life experience of a dairy cow raised to give milk. And do cows always have milk, or do they have to be pregnant at all times to have milk?
I remember meeting a woman not too long ago in LA. She was very educated. She was like, had a PhD and everything. And we were talking about dairy, and she looked at me and she said, "You mean cows don't just give milk?" I mean, it's like, I think really, I suddenly realized that a lot of people think that cows just sort of magically give milk, and that if you don't take the milk from them, they're suffering. And so it's really a benevolent kind of a thing to take their milk and keep them from suffering. I mean, I hear this sometimes. And so I think, yeah, we need to really obviously educate people that mammals, like women don't just start squirting their breasts at one point, milk out of their breasts. I mean, it's for the baby. And so we have to steal it from the baby. We have to kill the baby normally to do that on any dairy, organic or not. When I was a kid, I would go up to this dairy up in Vermont, and we would kill the dairy cows every year when they were only 5 years old. So even though these animals would live to be 20 years or 25 years naturally, they're killed on any operation at a very young age, because you don't want to feed them. And by the time they're 5, they've usually already had about 5 babies. Every 9 months, they're impregnated. So they're pregnant and lactating simultaneously, which no mammal is designed for that. And it breaks down their health very quickly. So it's better to keep one of the females that's been a baby, not kill her. You kill the other 3. Usually it's 2 males and a female. People say that veal is usually is male, but it's sometimes it's female too. And so it's a killing operation. It's just a misery. I mean, we lived in an RV for 18 years, and we sometimes camped in an RV park near a dairy. And I remember hearing at 3 o'clock in the morning, the plaintive cries of these dairy cows screaming and bellowing for their calves that had been stolen. And the old saying is that when they would say this about women, that if it's well known that a woman who's angry, her milk will make her infant sick. This idea that somehow the energy in that milk is not good if you're angry. Well, think of what people are drinking when these animals are filled with fear and despair and anxiety and terror and misery, and we're eating that, we're causing that, we're eating it. I mean, it's a complete defamation and desecration of the female and of the babies, and it's pure violence on every level. And if you see some of these undercover video footages, like the Conklin dairy video from Ohio a few years ago, it was a small dairy. I mean, the sheer brutality of kicking and stomping and hitting the calves and the mothers and stabbing them because they don't do what you want them to do. And it just brings out the worst in the people. That's the thing. I mean, the people also become monsters in many cases, and don't really, because the whole system is based on violence and domination and killing and abuse. And so it's very harmful for not only the animals, but for people. And then to drink that stuff, and we go into how toxic it is. So, I mean, really, it's really a nightmare. I mean, it's a total nightmare, dairy.
And just to add a personal anecdote here, we don't need Will's secondhand story, because I am a firsthand story. I had a PhD in electrical engineering from Princeton University, 5 degrees in mathematics and engineering to my name, and I did not know that a cow had to be pregnant for milk. So that just goes to show how deeply programmed we are. And I was vegetarian at the time. So I already made the connection years ago, with my dog growing up for animal rights reasons. I just still did not know that information and was just blindly going along. And so, yeah, first person story.
Thank you.
My grandmother actually told me when I was a child, she said, well, if we didn't, because I questioned about milk one time, and she said, well, if we didn't milk them, it would hurt. It would hurt them if we didn't milk them. This is the mentality that we've manufactured around all this, right? But I did want to mention too about organic dairy, because a lot of people think that it's so much better. Oh, I should buy organic. But actually, this is one of the cases where it can be even worse, where these alternative labels can be worse ethically for the animals, because they're in commercial dairy. cows have what's called mastitis. Often it's an infection of the udder because of the, unnatural situation, the filthy, awful, stressful life that they live. They get mastitis. It's an infection of the udder where the udder can swell, can be painful when they're milked. And on commercial dairies, they're giving them antibiotics and pharmaceuticals and all kinds of drugs to clear up that mastitis, to keep them in production, right? Well, on organic farms, when I was researching my book, I had a veterinarian confide in me that he was seeing cows with the worst cases of mastitis, with painful milking when they're being milked on organic farms, because they were not giving the pharmaceuticals and the antibiotics that these cows needed to clear up the mastitis. Because if they gave them the medications, they'd have to take her out of production and couldn't sell her milk. So this is where these labels can be even worse for the cows and for all the animals. So organic dairy is a great example of that.
Yeah, and I've heard actually that on those organic dairies where they can't give the milk, I mean, their teats get so swollen and clogged up, the milk doesn't get out. And so they have this thing like a corkscrew that they screw up and rip it down. I mean, it's extremely painful, causes a lot of bleeding, but they want to get that milk, they want to get that money. So yeah, organic dairy is more violent and cruel than non-organic. I think you're right. I agree. Absolutely.